there isn't a perfect way. If there was, everybody would be doing, there are trends and fads and where the game is going. And I get that, but I believe in just choosing your way, right? Like we have to identify, like identity casts vision, right? Like, so we need to identify what we are and who we are, and then just be disciplined and not wavering from that, right? Like, we can't give up on the plan if it's, 3 games in and it's not as pretty as what we want it to be.
Welcome to the JAMODI podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is JAMODI, just a matter of doing it.
Today we are joined by the head men's basketball coach at Reinhardt University, Justin Newton. Coach Newton played college basketball at Tennessee Temple University. He started coaching in 2011 as the head boys basketball coach at his alma mater, Victory Christian School in North Augusta, South Carolina. He turned an 8-win team into an 18-4 conference championship squad and was named Coach of the Year. He's entering his 6th year as the head coach at Reinhardt. He's led the Eagles to 3 top 2 finishes in the AAC in 5 years with 15 All-AAC players and an overall 3.2 team GPA. Prior to coaching at Reinhardt, Coach Newton led Andrew College to a GCAA regular season championship and was named Coach of the Year. Before we hear from Coach, take a moment to subscribe to our podcast and follow us on social media at JAMODI Podcast.
Coaches, the JAMODI podcast is powered by Shoot 360. The future of basketball has arrived in Dallas-Fort Worth. Shoot 360 combines the latest sports technology with the fundamentals of basketball skill development. The result is a one-of-a-kind video game-like basketball program designed to improve your shooting, dribbling, and passing. Visit shoot360dfw.com to learn more and register for your free 1-hour workout evaluation. Shoot 360, the future of basketball is here.
There he is.
How you doing, Coach?
Good. How about you, man?
I'm blessed, man. Just hanging out.
Yeah. What's new with you this time of year?
Probably the same as everybody else, man. Hunting bodies, trying to, feel like I'm so overstimulated with the amount of good players out there, with, everybody can argue good or bad at the transfer portal. There's just a lot of them,
Yeah.
You're blind if you're not looking in there. So those and good high school kids and JUCO kids. So you're just trying to sift through all of it, what makes sense for you.
Do you feel yourself leaning more towards the portal or a balance between that and high school kids?
I think I'm somewhere in a balance. I think, one of my former bosses told me they all graduated high school at one point, kids are kids if they make sense for your need. As far as the portal, I haven't taken anybody in the portal that isn't a 1-year guy, where it is their last stance. Otherwise, either been junior college guys, I'm a former JUCO coach, or high school guys, and I've had good experiences with all 3. I've had bad experiences with all 3. So I think it's just more the fit of what's needed that year. This year we need a little bit more of an older guy. So it's, I got needs for 4 or 5 spots that make more sense for the junior college or a portal guy, so.
That makes sense. I didn't have you on here to talk portal, so I just want you to breathe easy there. But man, just want to thank you so much for coming on Talking Hoops with me. And this is the connection here is really from Twitter or X, just enjoying kind of following you. Really thought you do a great job of celebrating other sports at your school, which is not something that I always do well. And so kind of when I see guys on X that seem interesting, it's awesome when this gets to work out. So thank you so much.
Well, I appreciate you having me on, man. I'm a fan. I'm not blowing smoke. I listen to your podcast pretty often. So yeah,
you're the one.
Whatever. No, you do a great job, and I'm very humbled to be on here with you.
Wow. Well, I appreciate that. Well, talked a little bit about this time of year for you. Obviously, as a college coach, recruiting, full-time job just right there. So you have to be pretty organized, and I bet you got some daily habits that set you up for success. So what does that day look like?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of them is kind of corny, but I think perspective, guides everything. And I audibly say, and sometimes I put it on X as well, hoops for a job and sinner saved by grace. Those are two things that I don't always feel in that moment, but there are a whole lot worse things I could be doing than coaching basketball. So on those days that it is stressful, it's not as stressful as being a soldier or a heart surgeon or, digging ditches.
Yeah.
Just being thankful that I get to do those things. And when things are going good, just remind myself like, this is exciting. I get to be a college basketball coach. So it's a little corny, but I try and say it every day. Sometimes I walk in the gym and yell it to our guys just to remind them, it may be a tough day, but there's a lot worse things that we could do. And I'm like most dads, every morning I'm getting the kids ready for school and I cherish those times, cooking them breakfast. That's dad and buddy's time and drop them off. And then I'm like 45 minutes away from
Oh,
here.
wow.
Right? So it's good and bad. I think, I'm a podcast guy. I listen to yours as well. And I got some other ones that I like to listen to or, on the way to work, just to get ready and get in the mode. Sometimes I've got two guys I call every day, former boss of mine and Corey Baldwin on the way in. Sometimes it ends up being our own little podcast of just talking some things through or talking ourselves off the ledge or things like that, and my dad. So having those consistent, conversations with people that are your mentors and you respect, and just, having that perspective of what you get to do really, really helps me on a daily basis. Those are my vitamins.
Man, love that word perspective. And you're right on the money. We ask our players all the time to remember that the relationship between get to and have to. And then guys, you get to be in the weight room. Like
Right.
you get to run today. Like, but how often do we switch that around and do we live by that? Like I get to go to a staff meeting instead of I have to go. And you're right on the money. Like, for those people that listen, I'm in sweats and tennis shoes. You're in a hat and in a polo, and I'm pretty sure like shorts most of the time, like for me. And like it's pretty amazing that like hoops for a job. Well, we love this game, but we actually get paid to do this. So we should approach every day that way.
Yeah. I mean, I was joking over the Easter weekend when I had to put on a coat and tie. I'm like, live every day in sweats. This is highly uncomfortable. I am so ready to get out of this. But no, I think it is just on the day. There are tough days. There are hard days.
Yeah.
Like a profession, but it's just, I think where some coaches that, get in it can get out of coaching really easy is getting in that lounge talk that we all can be prey to, that teacher's lounge talk about the problems that we have. Everybody's got problems. Those guys on TV, they're getting paid millions of dollars, new levels, new devils, man, they got problems too. We don't need to live in that. As long as we're living in mostly the positive, I think, you can attack the day and get after it and have good perspective. So I agree with you.
But like you said too, like if you care enough about anything, with the level of care, I feel like sometimes the level of worry or stress also increases. So whether you're at a 5A TAPS private school like me, at a college like you, if we're trying to make the big time where we are, if we care about what we're doing, then we're going to care about those details, which brings on a level of stress. So one, it's like if there are coaches that feel that way, in my opinion, that's okay, but you can't let it get to a point where you lose perspective. And like me, probably 4 or 5 years ago, where you start to think, man, like, is this really what I want to do? Like, is this really worth it? I think we've all gone through that.
Yeah, I think you're right on the money with the care. Like if you care at all, if this is really what you're supposed to do, you're going to be frustrated. You're going to be competitive. You're going to be angry. You're going to be worried. All those emotions are fine. I saw a really cool, I'm sure you've seen it, most coaches have on Twitter or on X, where he takes the sponge and dips it in the cup of water. And he goes, that's our emotions. Like if I put this sponge in that cup of water and just let it sit in there, it's going to take a long time for me to get all that out. If I dip it in there, pretty quick ring out, right? Like we can dip in that negative and that worry and that frustration and that competitiveness and negativity. We can dip in there because we care. live in there. We live in there. We're not getting productive. It's going to take a whole lot longer for us to get productive if we live in that. So, yeah, I mean, you're going to have days, you're going to have moments, you just need to have that mistake response ready to get right back to it.
And that's good. Yeah. I love that idea of the sponge. And I think when you're saying that, it really made me think about your why. Like, I think it comes down to your why, because the stress is going to be there if you care, but your why allows you to keep that perspective that you talked about at the very beginning. Yeah. Like when parents, administration, when things are seem to be just kind of going the opposite direction, you got to remember your why. And it goes right back to what we tell players. Players, when you're having a hard time, remember why you started. Coaches, when we're having a hard time, remember why we started. And it was typically one, a love for the game, but also a love for teaching the game, wanting to see young people's lives transformed and wanting to have a small part of that. Golly, coach, like remembering our why, can't imagine a bigger thing.
Yeah, I completely agree. And you kind of got to burn the boats a little bit on what you're doing. If you give yourself an out that, if this doesn't work, and there's going to be days where you're ready for that out. You hear comedians talk about like, I have to be a comedian because I don't really know what else I would ever do. That's how I feel. My dad, was a coach. He's a minister as well, but I literally couldn't see myself doing anything other than this. So, hope I get to keep doing it for players too. Like, I want so many good coaches out there, that hadn't gotten opportunities. So, we don't need any that are negative and taken for granted what they got, because there's a million of them that would take your job today that would do a good job.
Yeah, and sometimes we forget that, and I forgot that. Only a small group of coaches. You kind of talked about that community of coaches that you have, which I do think is so important. But the small group of coaches that I have, we call ourselves the bots, the brothers of the sword, and we just a few coaches that we Marco Polo together. It's been going on for like 5 years now. So this and every few days we'll get on there, and but man, they know this. But part of me doing these talks, I want it to be authentic and real, and not hold back struggles or just try to act like I know what I'm talking about or know what I'm doing. Like you and we all struggle and we all have those moments. And so a few years ago, it's right around COVID, I just didn't know. I didn't know if this was something that I could do for a long time, if the level of care and the stress, or if obviously we're not in it for the money, is there something else? And so because of COVID, I got to dabble. And I got my real estate license, and for about 8 months while I still had my job here, but it felt very different, looked different. Man, I went out and I sold 3 homes. One was my in-laws and stuff. So that was kind of an easy one. But, I worked really, really hard during those 8 months. And I realized that if there's no basketball in it, like my heart's not in it. And, I had to go out, even with like playing and coaching for a while, like I had to go out and try something else to realize that. And I don't know, I'm not saying that every coach should do that, but but to me, it's more like learn from it. Like going back to the very beginning, hoops for a job. Like the fact that we get paid to do this, man, like there are other ways to make money, more money. And I saw that, the potential there, but basketball wasn't in it.
No doubt. Like, what are your values in, man? What do you value? I definitely, we all would like to make money and take care of our families. And I think you can do that in hoops. And there's a million stories of coaches doing other things like that. I'm thinking of Chad Warner over at Furman, who was a banker for, a year and just said, I don't want to do this. I can't do this. Or you're those coaches that are driving trucks at night to keep the dream alive. I love that stuff. Because I do think you get grounded in your roots about, like, if I really want to do this, I kind of seen both sides of the table. I like it over here better. What do I got to do to make this everything and make it where I can do a career? And you may do a really good job at it and get fired. Can you land back on your feet? Some of it's, luck. The harder I work, the luckier I get. So yeah, no, I completely agree.
Man, that's a great, that's a sobering thought right there, is that we can give our very, very best and try to do everything correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, we may not have as good of a team as others. And because of the climate of win now or success at all costs, I mean, you see it this time of year. It seems like on every time I turn on ESPN News or whatever, at the bottom, the new job, new hire, new hire. But there's a flip side to every new hire, is that there was a new fire that just happened right there, and so it's one of the, like, gratitude. I think that's what I'm trying to get at. Gratitude for having the opportunities we have today. Make the most of it, because as good as we can be, man, it's not guaranteed.
No doubt.
The JAMODI podcast is powered by Sideline Interactive. Sideline Interactive is the leading manufacturer for high-quality, innovative scoring tables and LED video display boards that help coaches and schools bring more excitement to fans, create huge fundraising opportunities, and make their jobs easier. Visit sidelineinteractive.com to check out their amazing products.
Golly, Coach, we need to get this going a little bit more positive. No, it's good. I think standards and pillars of programs are, you hear like word culture thrown around obviously a lot, and it can be switched out with standards and pillars. But if I, was to walk into your program, talk to players, shadow you for a day or a week in and out of season, what would be some of those standards and pillars that, we'd feel?
Yeah, and the culture, the buzzword, culture. I think culture is just good, the people that you have in your program and the behaviors and habits that you enforce every day. Ours are simple. They compete together, disciplined. And those are very blanketed terms and very common terms. But again, it's what you emphasize, in the compete part. If you're really going to be that way, we try to emphasize that. I think that's the floor. Like, if you're not competing, you're not getting after it, you're not emptying the tank, you really don't have, like, all those other ones don't matter quite as much. The together one, we like to say we're a family around here. We play together. We do team retreats and all those things, celebrations. You can sing Kumbaya around the campfire, but if you don't play hard and you don't have good players, it doesn't really matter. So in everything that we do, whether it's the classroom, we have a big board outside of our locker room to where the guys compete for extra shots. They'll have groups of 3 and they compete against each other. We do the winter dinner at the end of every month. So we'll do the winter dinner for that. We do in conditioning early in the season. Those things matter for us. We're not doing it just to say we're running, early in the conditioning part of the year when we can't have a basketball as much. We split guys up in positionally, and we have, conditioning drills that, kind of married to how we play and toughness and things like that. And we compete for those every week, and we keep track of wins on those things. And we do the winter dinner at the end of every month with that, and this year was kind of cool. We have an assistant coach, Sean Glaze, who's a former high school coach. He's retired since and does a lot of leadership talks. He's got a boat house right here near campus. It's our winter over at his house, and we get on the boat with those guys, and it turns out to be a good time. But we, in practice, we're not just out there doing a drill. It's gold versus blue, whether it's shooting, whether it's, 5-7 good stops. We want to make sure that the compete level is at an all-time high. You're either winning or losing something. We have academic teams as well. Coach Bowling has a team, Coach Blaze has a team, Coach Newton has a team, and we do the winter dinner of who had the highest GPA of those teams. So it's not just words. We want to try and make sure that if we're going to put that on their notebook and in the locker room and all that stuff, those are things that carry over, not just into, let's compete, guys. So, everybody's saying that.
Guys, it's on the T-shirt. You know what, Coach? I wanted to yell out amen. Like, I think you nailed it right there. Like, those 3 words, and we'll get to together and discipline in a second, but those 3 words are great. Like, I think most programs, like we're watching on TV right now, those words are infused with what they're doing. So, but Coach, I mean, let's be honest, there's like 20 words that you could choose. I bet those 3 really mean something to you, which culture starts from us. like we are the ones, and especially unless it may be when it's your first year, but if you've been at a place for 3 or 4 or more years, new players come in, you're the only one who's been a part of that culture before. So like it has to be important to you. Your players have to feel that, but it's not just that you say compete, hey, we're going to compete today. It's winter dinner. It's the board. That's kind of, thank you again for saying that you listen to this. That's humbling. It's not what you do, but it's how you do what you do. Like just saying compete to me is like, okay, great. Like it's, yeah, that it sounds, we need to do that. But man, like it's those little things. Will you tell me a little bit more about winter dinner, how that works, and just the organizational piece to it?
Yeah. So winter dinner, it just depends on the time of year. We compete, like I said, with the shooting board. And again, depending on the type of the year, it could be once every month or once every 2 weeks, right? And it'll be with the shooting board, it'll be groups of 3. And we try to make it match up, to where it's older guy, younger guy. So it's kind of balanced. But a lot of times it's to do with their class availability. You don't want to punish kids for, we tried to get in the gym, but dude's a nursing major or something that you can't get into what. So we try to make the schedules kind of where their free time to get to work in is on there. So then we'll tally it up and they can win by 2 total shots or, perfect attendance, right? Like if their group got in every day, there's a winner for that. And then if there's more than, one group that is perfect attendance, we tally up the shots, right? The most made shots. We count made shots, not shots taken. We count made shots only. And we put it up on the board right there, public shame, public praise, for everybody. It is right there for any
healthy peer pressure, the good side of peer pressure.
No doubt. And it's the same with our conditioning racing. We have our announcement board over there that has our winners. And, if you miss a time, that's a loss, so you get a big red X when you lose. So you'll post that up there, public praise, public shame. And then again, we're not going to put people's grades up there, but we do put the winning team of GPA, overall GPA up there. These 6 guys had the highest GPA. And that's some public praise for that coach and those kids, that locked in the classroom too. And then, we kind of have a good idea who our good students are, who our struggle students are. So you kind of try and balance those teams up. And then as far as the actual dinner, something like when it's warmer, we went to Coach Glaze's house, we'll eat, we'll get on the boat. And again, it's not about, all right, let's have these 6 guys come over and I got these 4 questions that I want to get across. And thrive for any authenticity, any consistency. Just like seeing me, pick up my kids and take them to school or something, seeing me in an element where I'm not the principal in the office, you know what I mean? But just having that real touch with them instead of it being a homework assignment. I got to get 15, fist bumps before I leave today. Like, that's fine. But, kids crave that authenticity of like being around and seeing you as a human being. So it's an opportunity to celebrate what you want repeated. You want guys to compete and win, but also it gives you another place that's not a coach player meeting, which those are important, but that oftentimes feels like an assignment or
there's an agenda to it. Yeah.
Whereas, just hanging out, there's nothing trying to be accomplished here other than let's spend some time together and whatever happens. So, we really love that. And then throughout the year, it turns into, like in games, do we chart things that matter, charges and rebounds and things like that, and, the toughness award, so they can get, tally those up for winter dinner as well. So we try and keep that consistent going on through the year. And in the spring right now, we can't really work with guys, so we do the winter dinner on the shot stuff right now. So yeah, that's been really good for us.
I think there's a good challenge in everything that you said there, to coaches to find different ways to compete, because obviously a team practice and small-sided games, when there's a clear winner and loser, what we're doing, that's easy to find competition there. But within your challenges, within your skill work, and kind of an example, I think, is we would, for years, when I say chart, because it's just me in the gym with 35 guys, usually it's more like hands raised, yell out your numbers. that's a way to me of charting. Now, physically writing things down, we do have a board, and we do at least 10 times green, yellow, red shooting. And green, yellow, red shooting is 9 spots, 10 shots at a spot, 4 minutes max, 2 basketballs, a rebounder, a passer, and a shooter, and one guy goes for 4 minutes. But there's I like the public praise, public shame, like obviously not doing it to shame anybody. They own their number. It's really to celebrate. If you see any type of improvement, man, we're going to snap for that. We're going to be all excited. If obviously anybody that's a green light, that 44 or 45 or above, we celebrate that with snaps. But what happened was like guys were slowing down in the game to think that they could make more shots. So they weren't even getting 90. They were just getting in the 65, 70 range. And the problem with that thinking is, and but like if they practice slow with the intent to make more, they're practicing a shot that they actually won't get when they play. So they're hurting themselves or not helping, but for that game to get a higher number. So we changed it to where if you don't get to 90, you have to say that. You have to let us know. And instead of a number, you just get a line through it. So like you did it, you did the game, but just a line. And within a week or two, we had hardly any lines. The first time there was like 10 lines. That competition of not just like me against others, but me against time. I don't want to have a line on the board. If I do this drill and I get a score, I want it to be counted for. Like that's a way to bring competition into what could be just a shooting drill where we try to see who gets the highest number. That's great. But I think coaches can get like you with the, I love there's something about winter dinner. I don't know. It just rings really nice, but maybe that's the chicken winter, like that kind of thinking. But winter chicken dinner. That's it. But I think we could be more creative.
Yeah, no, I agree. And if they're not taking, shot or, defensive reps like you're doing effort drills and, we're closing on every catch, but you guys are flying by every time, like, does it make sense to the principles that you're making? So like again, high clarity on, all right, what does success look like? Is it a time? You put a time stamp on it, right? Is there an attainable goal? Because we are like Atomic Habits, the book came out, and we all should be more obsessed with habits. But there's nothing wrong with goals, like putting goals on we have a shooting thing we do every day called Sonic, to where, we have a goal and that goal is raised, every, with every team. So we have a floor, right, man? We didn't hit that goal today, right? Like we have a consequence for that, so even in their extra work, extra shooting, they have goals when they walk in there. Their extra weight stuff that we're not there for. Is there like, what are your goals to walk in here to do? I'm not just, all right, I'm in here 30 minutes. Well, what did I get done? You got to be able to measure that, to where it makes sense to what you're doing with your team for sure.
Coach, I'm going to dig in a little. You said Sonic. So can you explain what that is?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's old Carolina stuff, but it's 3-man 5-ball, 3-man weave, we try it's our perfection drill. Like we can't have any missed layups. So you'll have an outlet, you'll have the rim runner. We'll throw it out to the rim runner. The two other guys are sprinting, sideways, and catching either on the wing or in the corner, catch and shoot shots, get the rebound, get back in line. And then the rebounder underneath gets it out. And his 3 guys are the 2 passers for the shooters, right? And in 4 minutes, a good team, and they're all ones, and you count the layup, you count the any made shots. A really good number is 120, so if you get one, like over my course of a few years, 120 makes is pretty good. Again, it's just another way to compete at the beginning of practice. And we do play, I said we play fast. We're not trying to shoot fast, but we are trying to play with pace. So we fly it up. And that's just another way of we're getting realistic shots of flying it up with pace and rim running and things like that. To where, again, it's an attainable goal. It's a great way to start practice because we say quiet gyms, losing gyms. So they have to count any makes. I don't count them on the board. If I don't hear 1, 2, and they call it corny all they want, we're going to make sure we're talking on all those at the beginning of practice. So just a good way to get us, really going right there at the beginning.
If competition is the floor, how does that togetherness and a disciplined culture, how does that fit in?
Yeah, I think those are like the separators for sure. You got to have the floor, they got to have the foundation of we're going to compete like crazy. But together, I hate, you talk about your why. My favorite thing about being on a team, I didn't want to stop being on a team. I was raised very conservative, you know, little tiny Christian school and all those things are fine. My favorite thing about being on a team, it was a bunch of people that look different, think different, all that kind of stuff. So just as a human being, getting to be around people and hearing about their curves in the road. I don't know if you've ever heard somebody's life story that you disliked that person, right? Like if you spend time to actually listen to that person, you ended up disliking them. So I hate the notion of you don't have to like each other. You just have to respect. I think that's bullcrap. I think we should strive if we're on the team as coaches and players to enjoy being around each other because you're way more apt to compete for that person. If you do it again, it's not everything. You can like each other all you want. And if you're not competing and you're not talented, good luck. You got other things, but I think to take you to that next level, if you really are competing for that guy next to you, and it really is a brotherhood and it's not just words, then it means something. So again, and it needs to be authentic too. It doesn't need to be like an end to a means, right? Like those winter dinners, those road trips, we have FCA team time where we get to sit around and talk. I have guys that come over to our house, just to eat, just because, and you try and do those things, you definitely are trying to get across like, look, I've been in your shoes not so long ago, man. I know I can be hard to deal with. I know that being a college athlete is hard, so spending that time together, we do a team retreat. That's some of the most funny. I belly laugh more during those times than anybody. And you don't have to spend a whole bunch of money. It's just get away and do some exercise together, play flag football. We play flag football every year and it's a blast, and you end up building those relationships. So when you're that way, when you try to talk to kids about on the floor, the togetherness is most years that I've been, at Andrew and at Reinhardt and even as an assistant at Arkansas Monticello, we have led the league or been top 2 or 3 in the league in assists a game. And I don't think that's a play or that's a system. That is we want to hunt nines. We want to, complete passes till we get a good shot. And it's hard to do that if you don't trust that guy, right?
Yeah. It's a mindset. Yeah.
Trust that guy's work. But if you don't trust that dude as a person, it's hard to give that up, right? So like if we're going to ask those guys to share the ball and move the ball until we get us a shot, not you a shot, you probably need to feel like that other dude feels the same way. Like I'm doing this thing, but I don't really believe Matt is doing it, right? Like, well, I got to believe that Justin is doing it for me to do it, right? So spending that time together, I think can translate if you really are trying to play that, which we are, like we're not Princeton. We're not going to be the most efficient offensive team in the country. I hope we're one of the best defensive teams in the country. And we move the ball and share the ball and have really good talented players. So, that plays a part into the togetherness stuff too. And then I think when you do that, it sure helps with those, everybody says they want a player led team. Well, do you give them the chance to do that? Like, do you give them the chance, or is everything, you got to do this, you got to do that. So spending that time together and really helps with the leadership in the locker room, I believe. So.
Coaches, the JAMODI podcast is powered by Scoreboard Media. Scoreboard Media works with high schools across the country to run professional sponsorship programs on their LED scoreboards. Whether you already have LED and you just want to supercharge the revenue, or you want to use sponsorship revenue to buy new LED video scoreboards, Scoreboard Media can help. They work with sponsors and advertisers locally, regionally, and nationally who want to connect with your school's community. Email info@scoreboardmedia.com to start the conversation and see what's possible.
And you nailed it, because when you started off talking about the phrase that I feel like if you're a player, you heard a coach say it, and then we've all said it, which is you guys don't have to like each other, but you have to respect each other. You have to learn to work together. Like, but you're right. Like, why not strive to get them to like each other? Because if you truly have, now obviously at the high school level, we don't, for most schools, we don't get to choose our players. And, and I do trust, I trust that God's going to bring the right people on the bus. What if he brings somebody that is a little bit of a challenge, that does have some quirks, that does have something with their personality that it just doesn't mix with everybody, like, but why not have a goal as a coach to create an environment? It's like the same thing with shooting. If we only had more shooters, we would do this or that. Well, create them. Like, figure out a way to create an environment where shooters are cultivated, where that grows. I think it can be the same thing with relationships, and you nailed it. If you're hoping that it happens during team practice time, in the locker room, right after, before practice, I don't know. I don't know if that's the best environment for it, because a lot of times tensions are high. People's guards are up. They're emotional in those moments. But if you take them away, if you spend time away from basketball, if you have them in over to a house, in a place, on a retreat where guards can come down and we can start to learn each other's stories a little bit more. That's how I think that's possible.
Yeah, I mean, I think Chris Beard was the one that coined the phrase, "You don't win with 3:30 guys," right? Most people practice at 3:30. And I think that is the same off the floor. Like, you can't expect to just show up at 3:30 with these guys and expect them to trust you. Like, you need to be visible in all other aspects of their life as much as you can. We have families, we have kids, and those guys need to see that. Like, I have missed a weight workout to tell them, look, I'm going to JT's baseball game. Are you cool with that? And they love it and they understand that, right? And to kind of allude to what you said before, how do you deal with like a problem kid? I think people are messy, man. I'm messy, right? My dad, growing up, he's an assistant pastor, and not to get too preachy here, but one of his favorite Bible verses is, "Where no oxen are, the crib is clean," right? But great strength comes from the ox. When dealing with people, you're going to deal with a lot of crap, right? That's just a better word, you know, but great strength comes from that ox, man. You got to understand that if you're going to be in leadership, if you're going to be, I just want to coach. Well, that's part of coaching, man. Like, dealing with people's messy personalities. I mean, I coached a kid 2 years ago that was just, a handful, to say the least, and was he just could not trust. He comes back from Christmas break, and I find out, his dad's bipolar, and kicks him out of and burns all of his stuff over Christmas break, and watches his dad, beat up women over the time. Like, you wonder why that guy doesn't trust men, right? Like, and to just go, man, forget that kid. That doesn't make his behavior okay. That just means you need to have a little bit different approach with this guy than you do this guy over here. So I just think not being okay with disrespectful behavior, but showing some empathy and some patience with some guys to try and get them to where they know how to behave and how to act and things like that, instead of just going, man, they're not about the team, they don't get it. I think that preserves our ego a little bit. I think we need to understand that that's a human being sitting on the other side, and they ain't all going to be what we want them to be, and we're not all that they want us to be. So if we all understand that, I think we would have a lot more empathy and compassion in trying to deal with those personalities. And if they see that you have their best interest at heart, that kids want to be coached, man. Like, if that kid trusts you, you earn the right to be able to talk to him a certain way or hold him accountable. I mean, it's hard to walk in at 3:30 and go, and get after some kid that he don't know you at all. And I'm not. I love Tony. I'm not Tony Bennett, and he's awesome. I'm a little bit of a barker sometimes, but like, it's going to be those guys. I'm probably going to pat him on the butt like 5 minutes after, right? He's probably going to put his arm around me about 5 minutes after, because we're in there competing and emotions are high. But you have, in my opinion, you have to at least strive, and you may not get that there with a lot of kids, and that's part of it, man. but you at least need to be striving that you do want to like each other, that you do want your players to like and enjoy being around you. You don't want to be their friend, but at some point you do. You want to be there and be that person for them. So, not to get too deep in the weeds or too corny, but I do think that stuff matters if you're trying to win.
Coach, it's okay if we get deep in the weeds. Don't ever apologize for that. I think there's so many ways to do this. I don't really know where I am or how I line up on the I don't know, Bobby Knight to Tony Bennett scale. Like I don't know where I am. But I think you can be successful and you can create relationships all along that spectrum. Care has to be involved. If you don't care, I think a soft approach, you'll get completely run over and they won't take you seriously. If you don't care, that screaming is going to be dull real quick and they won't listen to you either. But either way can work if they know that you care.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
You have this togetherness now with your program, and now you're going to drop the hammer of discipline on them. How does discipline work in with your culture?
Yeah, I think discipline is also another buzzword that gets thrown around there too. I think
we're disciplined. Yeah. Like,
what does that mean? And for me, that just means, look, and you kind of allude to coaching styles, like styles wins fights. There isn't a perfect way. If there was, everybody would be doing, there are trends and fads and where the game is going. And I get that, but I believe in just choosing your way, right? Like we have to identify, like identity casts vision, right? Like, so we need to identify what we are and who we are, and then just be disciplined and not wavering from that, right? Like, we can't give up on the plan if it's, 3 games in and it's not as pretty as what we want it to be. Our plan is,
we'll sniff that out real quick.
Yeah, no doubt. Like if you don't believe in it, they certainly aren't going to. So, discipline is, all right, these are, and, non-negotiables, we have those, but you're going to work in more than just your non-negotiables. But again, just saying what you said you were going to do when you said you were going to do it is what discipline is, right? And we are a man-to-man team that, we a little old school, we press for 40 minutes. We're not necessarily, wild and run and jump and all that stuff. We have ways to dial it up, dial it back, but it's more about the wear down and the playing 9 to 10 guys and really getting after them and having that gnat in your face for 40 minutes, where we're telling you to mess up, right? And then having our defense turn into offense, so with the getting 3 of the baseline and getting them moving on both sides. So we're really trying to keep it simple. There are other things, we play off 2 feet here. That's another one that a lot of people like to do. That's a non-negotiable for us. We're disciplined in that. We'll have public praise and public shame in film. Man, you came off 1 foot here. That's not what we do. Came off 2 feet here. I'm running around high-fiving, unbelievable, playing off 2 right there and being disciplined there. I think discipline is what you emphasize, and you will be undisciplined in the things that you don't, and you cannot be disciplined in everything. You have to choose those few things that you value as a coach and live with the things that you're not going to be. Like I just said, we're never going to be Gonzaga or, lead the country in points per possession on the offensive end. I'd love to. I'd love to try to be both of them, but that's probably not what we're going to be. When we have been really good, we're one of the better defensive teams in the league, and we're one of the better rebounding teams in the league, and we lead in assists on the offensive end. We share the ball. And you identify and you value those things, and you shame those things that don't agree with that, right? So whatever it is you emphasize and you choose, it just needs to be clear, and it does need to be worked. There do need to be clear consequences to not doing the things that we said we were going to. If you said we're going to close on every catch and no mental drive, and you're not going to catch it every time either, by the way, but you need to catch it as much as you can and really hammer in those things that matter to you and live with the things that you're not going to be able to control, because you can't control all of them.
Coach, there's so many nuggets there and so many roads that we could go down with that, but you're right on the money with identity, knowing who you are. Rick Torbett said it takes you 10 years to figure out who you are as a coach. I don't know if that's exact, but it does seem to be right around there. You maybe start to figure out what you can tolerate, what style of play you're okay to lose in. Like that's a unique way of looking at it. Like for us, it's running and gunning, and I am okay with us losing, running and gunning. I don't think I'd be okay with us losing, walking the ball up the floor and running a lot of sets. But that's identity. There's a lot of coaches that are super successful doing it that way, and it goes back to like you said, and I love the way you articulated like discipline. People think discipline is like, oh, we make our guys run for everything. That's a part of discipline. That's physical discipline. That's harsh discipline. But discipline is also a stick-with-itness to what you said you were going to do, how you guys were going to play. And I immediately think of Nate Oates. Nate Oates, like at the college level, if I could be like somebody, if that's that D1 level, how do you scale that back to 5A taps? It's grapevine faith, because discipline doesn't mean you don't take a lot of threes. Discipline doesn't mean you walk the ball up the floor. They are very disciplined in racing, in shooting the first open three, in shooting the next open three, and all of those after that, and then attacking the paint and not shooting mid-range. They are incredibly disciplined in that, and he is sold out. He's all in, and they will not deviate from that way of thinking. There is discipline in that as well.
Oh, and I love what you said, because we get in things like this to where if you do those things, you are your biggest salesman, right? Like you should, this is our way. This is what we do because it's who you are as a coach. And if you're not who you are, those kids will read right through, right?
And that's the terrifying part though, right, Coach? Is that like, what's the major difference between assistant chair and head chair is that your decisions and the direction that the culture goes and the discipline that your style of play goes, it's all on you. Yeah. Like that's the tough part.
Yeah. Well, and again, and I couldn't be more opposite than Nate Oates. And I love Alabama and I love what they're doing. If I had to identify somebody, it'd be a Kelvin Sampson. I would like to be those guys if we could. I would like to be those get after it and rough and tough defense. And you know what? Both of those are highly successful.
Yeah.
Purdue didn't shoot 100 threes to win that game the other day. They threw it in the post. Alabama shot 100 threes and they won. And they're great. Just like you said, figure out what it is you are and what you believe in and sell out to it, man. Don't go with, I know what I'm not. I know what I am. And I know what that doesn't mean we're fixed mindset set. We're always growing. We're always trying to improve, but we want to be authentic. We want to be master teachers of the subject that we're giving to our players. And Nate Oates is a master teacher of what they're doing over there. And there's so many coaches that are. And there's so much information out there of we could sit down and watch on TV this weekend for the Final Four and get it, man. It was successful. I just need to go do that. Well, if that's not what you believe and you're not a master teacher and put in the time, like he's put in a lot of time, I'm sure you have too, all right, how do I implement that into practice? Right. You don't get to choose your players, but if you do, you better choose players that fit that way.
Yeah.
I want to be Houston and be rough and tough and recruit, not rough and tough guys. I want to, it fit that thing that you say, about players or, if you don't get to choose them, just the development of what I'm working on, the weight room and the skill set and all that stuff match the team that I want to be. Like I can't just go with every fad in the wind. I want to grow, but I want to be clear on who we are and be okay with that. I'm not that.
And that's I think what you're getting to is the art of coaching is you have this idea, this vision, like you said early on, but there is a part where you got to make sure the vision that it's realistic, like that your guys can actually do. I remember years ago we were trying to do the Grinnell system because if you're talking running and gunning, like it's the farthest that you can go down that path. Is that 5 in, 5 out every minute, shoot 75 threes in a game, don't care about anything but how fast, like that's it. And we're trying to do that. And like we lost one game 106-100, 32 minutes, no shot clock. So that's a good pace for a high school game. And one of my buddies came and watched us play, and he's like, man, I just said, like, hey man, what'd you think? Like, what'd you think of that? Almost expecting for him to be like, hey, like your guys are fighting, like it's exactly what you want, even though we lost. And he's like, I don't know if they can do what you're asking them to do. Like, what do you mean? He's like, you just, you don't have horses that really like are, in his mind, creating the live ball turnovers to getting a lot of the positives to pressuring. We were getting all the negatives out of pressuring, but not many of the So, but again, maybe going back to the community of coaches, guys that will tell you the truth, send game film to your friends and say, hey, what am I missing here? What do I not see? But going back to, a realistic view. And I think the art of it is not necessarily scrapping something or adding something, but taking and adjusting little bits, little differences or variations to what you really want. That might be the difference in your players truly being able to grasp it.
Yeah. And I think, man, unfortunately, I think I learned a little bit of that in this season. Prior to this season, we had finished first or second in our league doing it the way that we're talking about. And we just hadn't gotten over that big hump of cutting the nets down, and part of me is overcorrecting, instead of taking for granted of what got you to being in the position in the first place. Cause we just want that thing. And sometimes we overcoach it or take for granted those things that we're good at. And my mentor, I asked a couple of them, and that was the thing I feel like I've grown in this year is I've never been more clear on what it is and who we are here instead of trying to overcorrect.
Yeah.
And, just because, it's not going quite. Corey Baldwin at South Georgia State, the guy I started in coaching with, he told me about, and he's been there for a long time. He said, my first 4 years at South Georgia, I won 94 games, went to no national tournaments. My next 4 years, I won 94 games, and I went to 2 national tournaments. We are one bounce, we are one loose ball, we are one bad call away from it flipping one way or the other. It's about, can you get in that we're 2 or 3 possessions away and just keep getting better instead of, just throwing it all away. We got to do something different to try and get it. Man, it's hard enough being good at one thing. Trying to be good at a new thing is really hard, which is why I have so much respect for high school coaches. Man, you don't get to choose those players, and you have to make that system fit the dudes that you got there, because they're the ones playing. They're the ones taking those shots, regardless of what analytics or your system says. Like, that's a Jimmy and Joe out there. I got to figure out.
Sometimes it's a little Timmy. But yeah, Jim Reed is a coach in Texas that really well known. And he said something in his episode about that in November, he had March in mind. Yeah. And I think, but like, he's been doing this for 30 years.
Yeah.
How, I guess a good question. It's what Andy Bernard said in The Office. It's like this great little quote. He said, I wish somebody could tell you that you're in the good old days before you get out of them, like before you're past them, and how do you gain experience, or how do you know how to have March in mind in November without just having to do it for 30 years? And maybe part of it is, listening to a guy like Jim Reed, you and I remembering the feelings of kind of going back to that. Like, I wish, one regret is I'm glad I got out of the Grinnell business, because I think it's a good way to get you fired as a high school coach. I think, and I love it. Like, I have all their books. I've had both Arsenauts on. I think they're geniuses in the game. Like, they created something different in basketball. But if you can recruit to that and have people understand, like, listen, you are here to put on a show. We're not here. We're here to lead the nation in scoring. We may not win championships. You can do it. But that year we were 6-2, averaging 94 a game. I mean, we're literally not even talking about winning, talking about how many shots we got up. Like that was the only goal. And it was really fun playing 15 guys, being, guys 1, 2, and 3 cheering for guys 13, 14, 15. We added some guys for, football came in. We lost some games, and there was just a friction that happened with culture. And I was young, completely took us out of it, and we went another direction. We went like, pack line, like we went completely opposite, and it was a disaster year. And man, like I would have rather lost sticking with what we did. But like you have to go through that year to gain the perspective to be able to say, or the experience to be able to say in November, I've got March in mind.
Yeah, no, I think that's again something I went through similarly this year. We had a whole lot of injuries and excuses and reasons to why it didn't. So we threw a few curveballs in there for the personnel that we had, and it really helped us win a few games while we were going through those things. And then those injured players come back and we're not as good and we're struggling. And, and I again, very recency bias regret some of those things. And then just having those people close to you that you can confide in, you can trust in, that will tell you the truth, in love about, what you are and what you believe in. I think it can really help that. Styles win fights, man. If you're running the Grinnell, they have to prepare all week for that. If you're pressing for 40 minutes, you got teams putting 8 guys out there getting ready for the run and jump, like you're controlling style and you're taking them out of something that they're going to do. Teams are playing Zach Eddy. They're preparing for that all week long, probably, instead of worrying about how, their principles and their style, the Nova Southeasterns, and, that completely takes over the flow of the game. So I love the choose a style and marry with it, because again, you're dictating the pace and the style of the game, where people are having to overthink, and man, this is what you do. This is what we've done all year, and we're going to be great at it and elite at it, so I like that. I agree.
I think that flows really into style of play and kind of learning a little bit more. I feel like I know, defensively what you want to do. You made a comment earlier about that I wrote down that you might not be one of the most efficient teams offensively. And I guess my question is, like, are you basing efficiency off of how many passes, how much action, like how difficult is your offensive scheme? Because some would say analytically, Alabama's extremely efficient, but they're very simple with what they do. So if you don't mind, go a little bit deeper into that.
Yeah, well, again, I think we get to choose the players we want, right? So choosing to be a really good defensive team first, right? You might find a guy that's a 6'8" high skill guy, but he can't guard that trash can over there. That probably doesn't make sense for us, so, but I want that 6'5", no position, turn you over and over, rip your jersey off for another offensive rebound, right?
Yeah.
Well, when you recruit players like that, sometimes you're going to have one or two. Look, I am completely opposite of the, can't shoot, can't play crowd. And that's fine. Those dudes win a bunch of games. I'm going to have some guys out there that can't do that, but they can guard that dude that can shoot. They can get that rebound. So you're going to have some players that have a little bit of an offensive deficiency. So you're going to have less.
That makes sense.
Less ammunition to work with on that end of the floor. By no means do I think we're poor offensively. I mean, we're gonna have some. I think you recruit offense. You recruit some really talented guys on that end, but they better be able to do those other things on the other end. Are they mentally tough? Are they big and athletic? Are they competitors? Right? Like, do they fit what we say we are going to be? On that end of the floor. And then you kind of piece it together offensively, whether they're a post or whether they're. We had the best guard in the league this year. I thought, Nate Jones, and made the most threes in the entire league, but he's also big and strong and sit down guard some. So we prioritize prioritize those things over, high skill guy on that other end. Well, I'd love to have both,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we're watching those dudes on TV, right now. But how do you find those guys? Because like at the high school level, like literally when we're talking right now, a guy named Ryan Mased with Gasso, his episode's out, and it's about this program that he's created called Recruiting Simplified. And it's, I think I'm kind of answering my own question a little bit with his program, because he really does, he gives players, basically puts it on them to go out and find the right fit. See, like your school is unique because it is the right fit for somebody, but the fit and what you're looking for, it's not what you read about the most, what you hear about the most is you better be able to handle it. You better be able to shoot it. You better, and then all of a sudden here comes a guy like you that like, yes, that stuff's important, but I'm going to focus on another part of it. How do you find those guys? Like when you're going to a tournament, I don't know. What are some of those things that you're looking for?
Well, I don't think you recruit every kid this way, but
Okay.
I mean, you stay in it. You can recruit every kid to what your style is. But as far as finding those guys, they're just like you have coaching buddies. You have some recruiting programs that value those same things. It's easier to find those, or finding like identifying those three things I just talked about and letting that coach know, all right, who on your team, I know he's talented, I know he can shoot, I know he's athletic. Is he these three things, right? Is he tough? Is he physically? Is he athletic, right? And does he sit down and guard somebody and compete? So asking those questions, and you watch games, man. I know which guys, take that into the floor serious or are talking and do that, because you can't be horrible offensively. You gotta have in playing college. I'm thinking of a guy named Greg Hobbs that played at a junior college, and he looked like he should be running the ball on Sundays. And he was our point guard, and he could not shoot. But the best on-ball defender, and I mean, I'm talking about, led the league in steals, averaged about 4 rebounds a game. He was all defensive here. He was top 3 in the league in assist-to-turnover ratio, but all 3 years that he was here, but he couldn't make open jump shots. I think we can work on what jumped over those 3 years. All right, we can do some catch and shoots for him that, man, you're an 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 shooter. Can you make those enough and be elite at these other things? Then we can use you, right? Like you fill the role. We definitely want that guy that, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 can go get a jump shot for us. No doubt, for sure. But I think sometimes as coaches, myself included, we make the mistake that think we need all 5 guys to be that. But we have 1 or 2 that, but I also would love a 6, 7 guy that just thinks every shot is his ball. He just goes punch that ball every time.
Yeah.
To the floor. So,
man, I just want to celebrate you for the way that you view the game and the opportunity that you give players, that if this was flipped and I was you sitting on that side, I'd be saying almost the exact opposite thing. Give me the shooter. I can work on the defense. I can teach them that. I could teach them. And I'm not saying that like that's wrong, but what I love about doing this is there's just learning how there's so many different ways to do it. And the passion that you have for, like, even when you were describing that player, man, I could feel it. And just for one, like, you know who you are, you know what you're looking for, the compete together and disciplined, finding those dudes that fit that. I don't know. I just think there's something special to that.
Like you said, that we're probably polar opposites, quote, quote, on style, but we would probably be, as we're talking, we'd be shocked at how similar we are in our approach. And you can be disciplined and shoot 43s a game if that's what you work on and that's what you recruit to, right? You could be disciplined and not shoot very many of them at all. We shoot them, we let them fly, man. It's just the right guys doing it. It's just, you got to identify I believe you do. You got to identify what you are as a coach and, not try and be somebody else and recruit to that for sure.
realizing that there are just so many more ways to do it than the way that you like it. Like Kenny Hoffmeyer, I don't know if you know that name. He was kind of a legendary coach. He is. He's not dead. Legendary coach in Texas, out in California. But our girls' coach at Faith is Matt Garnett, who was at Wayland Baptist for a long time. Matt played for Kenny in high school, and Kenny Hoffmeyer is known for pressing. I probably have his packet down here, and he views the game in a way, and I can say this, like, I know him well, and I'm not. He would say, if you don't press, like, what are you doing? Why are you even doing this? Like, there's only one way to play. There's that type of conviction that is like, that I admire it, and I think there's a part of me that's like that, but I think it's also important for us to remember a lot of ways to do it. And you mentioned a couple, like I think Kelvin and Nate Oates are on Samson Nate Oates are on very different ends of that spectrum. I mean, but Houston plays fast, but there are different ways that they shoot and almost a different mentality towards that shot selection. But I don't know, Kenny popped in my head of like a guy that only sees one way.
Well, and I think, again, if it's for, as long as you have the perspective that it's not the only way for everybody else, I believe that we can do it. And you should be that sold out almost to your way. I mean, I don't get that. That's great. They do it and they're highly successful. I can't really fault them for doing that. I don't want to do it. You should have that conviction about what you're doing, and you should poke holes in your plan. Why do I do it? To have more ammunition, because you are a salesman to your kids. If coaches feel that way, what if 18 to 22-year-olds or 14 to 18-year-olds, you're constant. It is not just because the coach said it. They're not that gullible. They got phones. They can figure stuff out too. To give them all right, why do we do this? Like, what is our goal? Why do we press? Why is it no middle instead of no baseline? Why is it, this is a 9 on our shot selection, but this is a 3, like there needs to be, this is why we do it. I'm not saying it's the only way, and give them like, there's these other ways. We just got to pick our way, and this is the way we're doing it. If you're coming to play for us, this is the way you're going to do it. There's coaches that work on the 4 different levels of finishes and footwork and all that. And that's great. Do that. We're playing off 2 feet every single time. And if you don't like that, I'm not handcuffing your game. Just go play somewhere else.
I have one more question before the speed round. We've talked a little bit about assistant coaches, and I would imagine, especially at a higher level like you're at, the amount of things that you have to do every day. I mean, divvying up those responsibilities and really enabling them, giving them ownership. I got to imagine that's important. So how do you work with your assistant coaches and kind of giving them different responsibilities?
Well, I was really lucky to work for a lot of good head coaches that I got to learn a whole lot from those guys over a period of time. For me, we are not big time. We are, most of the guys that I've been very lucky to work with our assistant coaches are underpaid, or we got a couple of GAs and volunteer things like that. I try to identify what is it they love about. But like, I was an assistant. I loved the recruiting stuff, man. I loved getting on the road. I loved those relationships. I loved trying to figure out, putting together a team. And, if you identify, how can we use that? And there are guys that are opposite that way. I got an assistant now. He's not necessarily as relational and all that stuff. He's good at those things and he's growing in those things, but he is elite at the basketball operations stuff and the edits on Twitter and things like that. Right. That's his big role, and he serves, and everybody's going to have their hand in a few things, academics and, skill work and things like that. I've got another guy that, man, his dream is to be a skill development guy. All right, great. Let's delegate authority. So trying to find what their skill set is. If it's a guy, you go, all right, you're in charge of player development, but they don't have an aptitude for it or a passion for it. Without passion, we won't do hard things. You got to figure out what gets them excited about playing. There's a GA that's applied to be with us. He has worked at a Division I where he does all the film, showed me a couple of new things that you would bring to the table that we haven't had before. All right, take that and run with it. Here are a couple things I need you to do. I'll fill in the gaps to the things that you don't, right? So you try it just like with your team. What roles are they elite at? And we've all got to carry a little bit of the other things, but giving them things that they're the most successful at, turn the wheel a little bit, and then you can make up for the rest of it as a head coach, because you're going to have your hand in a bunch of them. So delegating that authority to where you don't even think about it because they're so good at it really takes it off the table instead of going, all right, here's these 3 things that I need you to do. Well, if they're not giving clear instruction or they're not really good at it, it's not going to get taken off your table. It's still on your table, So identifying what they're good at, I think usually helps me make a plan for what it is their role is going to be on the staff.
200 episodes of doing this, and I'm still learning new things or realizing areas that I'm just not very good. And that question, what do your assistants love to do? I've never asked that. I've never asked them that. And I haven't really even, I don't think I've thought about it much. Now, at Faith, they're part-time guys, so I do try to make it really easy for them, kind of show up, plug and play, more of a deal. Like I do a lot of those things that maybe like if we were full-time and they were doing this, I don't know, maybe I delegate more. But at the same time, too, as a control freak, I kind of like doing everything. But I think especially if you're at a school where, man, like when I was at McKinney with Wes Watson, we had a planning period together. We had time. Ask them what they love to do and then empower them to do that. Find out what their strengths are. Don't just have your assistants do the things that you don't want to do.
Right. Well, and I think a lot of times hiring an assistant is identifying those things that you don't want to do and trying to fire your weakness. And I stand the basketball operations stuff. I hate it. Can't stand it. Don't want to deal with it, right? Is there a guy that, he may not love it, but he is so good at it. And he finds, like Dylan always takes things, I give him a thing and he takes it to a new level that I would never even think about doing it with. And boy, does that help us. It gives me more time to do the film. And you'll run across guys that want to do the same things you're doing and they can't do all of it, but they can sit and shadow. And then you can empower them to, okay, I'm not going to do this scout. Let you do the personnel. Let's see how you do with that. And they do well with that, man, you get some more of that. And then you get to be even better. You have another head coach handling those things. So yeah, it's worked good for us, and I've been really lucky to have some good assistant coaches that have gone on to be head coaches and assistant coaches in other places. So
Coach, your tree's out there just growing.
Yeah, as far as like hiring, when we hire guys and we meet as a staff, and again, can be corny, but we talk about passion, people, plan, and purpose, and what those things mean. And the first is passion. You will not do hard things if you're not passionate about it, if you don't love it. The hoops for the job mentality is because I wouldn't want to do anything else, even on hard days. So we kind of shut down through those things of what that means to be a coach.
The JAMODI podcast is powered by Sideline Interactive. Sideline Interactive is the leading manufacturer for high-quality, innovative scoring tables and LED video display boards that help coaches and schools bring more excitement to fans, create huge fundraising opportunities, and make their jobs easier. Visit sidelineinteractive.com to check out their amazing products.
The speed round. These are going to be quick questions, man. I bet you've heard some of them, so that's kind of cool. Some quick questions. That first thing that pops in your head, go ahead and blurt it out.
All right.
Favorite ice cream flavor?
Using cream, no doubt.
Yeah, it's a good one. Greatest shooter of all time?
JJ Redick.
Huh?
My favorite college player. So,
favorite gym that you've ever coached in?
Ooh, man. That one's, I guess, Harding University in Arkansas. Really cool and unbelievable atmosphere. I mean, very, very good crowd. They get there. One of the loudest gyms I've ever been in. Really cool setup over there.
That's cool. Best basketball movie of all time?
Ooh, Hoosiers, hard not to pick Hoosiers.
Yeah. Texting or talking?
Talking for sure. You get people angry texting.
For high school, shot clock or no shot clock?
Shot clock. Not for, because I feel like everybody needs to prepare for college. Just, I think it helps the flow of the game move along a lot better for sure.
As a college coach, when you go recruit and you see a minute and a half possessions, how do you feel?
Yeah. I mean, you don't,
maybe like, there's a purist part. You're like, I get it. They're doing what they got to do, but
whatever your rules are, and your job as the coach is to try and figure out our way to win that game. So do you really fault that team that doesn't have the resources? All right, here's my avenue to try and, sorry. I mean, they're just trying to do their job and win their game. I don't think it's real realistic of what the game's supposed to be played like, but that's the rule that it's in. And if it's within the rules, like, I'm not going to want. But
it's fair.
I do think high school could benefit from a shot clock for sure.
Favorite holiday?
Christmas, for sure. I am a Christmas nerd. I love it.
How many days off do your guys get for Christmas?
It depends on the year, but at the very least, it's 7 days that you're required. But usually somewhere between that 7 to 10 days off. Like this past year was 8. Yeah. I mean, Division II, you're required 7. And NAI, most teams are 7 to 10. I did 1 year, we had 2.5 weeks off. I'll never do that again.
It's like starting over.
Gosh. Well, yeah, but 7 to 10.
You're up 3 on defense with 5 seconds left. Do you foul or no foul?
Up 3. Oh, we foul every time.
Really?
Every single time. I have lost games where we don't. I haven't lost a game fouling up 3. Again, doesn't make it. There is no perfect answer to that.
Sure.
But science and the situation says do it.
Yeah, but I think what you just said is pretty powerful. Like, there's been teams that hit a 3, we go into overtime, we lose. The fact that you've never feel like, or that you've lost doing it, I mean, it's pretty good selling point right there.
We're going to do it. There's no question.
What book would you give someone?
The Bible. Again.
Besides that
one? Okay, yeah. Above the Line by Urban Meyer. Got some bad press, with some stuff. Man, getting in the mind of that dude is, when you talk about discipline and getting the player to do what you want to do, and that documentary they had on him when he's at Florida was really good. But his book Above the Line had a lot of good, that E plus R equals O stuff comes out of that book. So I love that one by Urban Meyer.
I was just thinking about that documentary about Florida, because and great reminder too, to maybe dive outside of your own sport, learn from coaches from other sports, but then like you said at the very beginning, we're all flawed, all sinners. And so don't negate all the good because of some of the bad. But maybe really what stuck out to me in that documentary was they win the national championship and he gets on his phone and starts calling recruits. Like, wouldn't allow himself to take the moment, perspective, like, I want to be where my feet are, and I want to allow myself to drink in some of these great moments with our team, whether it's practice, whether it's games, not being hurried, not thinking so much of the future. That was a powerful moment to me.
Yeah, I loved that one. My favorite moment from that whole documentary was he finally gets the team turned around. Their first real big game against Ohio State. They kick it off and they run the touchdown the other way. And he just loses his mind and freaks out, throws the headset down. But he had built such a rapport with his players. His leader came there. He said, I've never had my arm squeezed as hard as it has. And my captain said, hey, I think we're going to score more than 7 points, right? Pick up that headset, coach us up. We're going to go win this next play. And it's like, I love that, because coaches are just as human as players. And to have that relationship with your player that he feels comfortable enough to come up to you and say that, I would love to have.
It's good. Favorite place to travel?
The beach, Destin, Florida. I'm not sitting out there and fry all day. I think I like the eating more than I like the actual.
Yeah. I just give me an umbrella, because I'm not going to fry, but give me an umbrella and a book and the waves and the sound. I'm in.
I'm all in on the beach for sure. We do. I will be on a beach somewhere in May.
Nice. Last one in basketball. Who's the GOAT?
Man, Bill Jackson.
All right. On the coaching side, I like that. What about on the playing side?
Man, I don't get it. I'm going to go it's LeBron. My favorite is LeBron. I know everybody goes with the Michael Jordan and stuff like that. I think he's my favorite because he is the opposite of that Mamba mentality and punching dudes for the next win, which I love that stuff. But he's maybe the greatest superstar teammate ever.
Wow.
Like, want to play with him. Yeah, again, he's been in front of the camera since he's like 14 years old. You know, he's a family man. He's never been caught cheating on his wife, and he's always there for his kids, and he's stayed married. He's the most giving athlete there ever was. So he's the GOAT for me.
He's probably the hero that we deserve, you know. And but like we go for Mamba, for Last Dance Jordan.
Yeah,
we'll rip your heart out, you know. But I think you're right. Who's maybe been the best for the game?
Yeah,
maybe LeBron.
I have to go with LeBron. I know I go against the grain there. He's my favorite superstar by far.
Coach, this was so enjoyable, man. And what I love about sports in general, but coaching, is the kind of the fraternity, that the brotherhood, sisterhood that you have when you get to, we don't know each other, but you get to have this talk and you know, it feels like I do know you. It feels like I've known you for a long time, but just really appreciate you giving up your time, being so open and honest with your program and how you do things. This was awesome.
Well, man, I appreciate it. I appreciate all you're doing for coaches and the game, and I'm a big fan. I'll keep listening, and I appreciate you. I appreciate you having me on. I really did enjoy it.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the JAMODI podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.